Welcome to the world-renowned Invest in Her podcast with your host, Catherine Gray. Catherine is a keynote and TEDx speaker, author, executive producer of the movie Show Her the Money, also CEO and founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. Our weekly show of powerhouse women, founders, funders, and changemakers is sure to inspire you. Let's go.
Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation, as well as executive producer of the new movie, Show Her the Money. And today we have on an extraordinary guest. She is the founder of a fintech platform called Ask RIA. Please welcome to the show, Adhrita Nowrin. Hi, Adhrita, how are you? I know you said your name is like Margarita, so hopefully I said that right.
I see Margarita, Catherine.
Margarita.
Thank you for having me, Catherine. Great.
A good way to start the show with a margarita. So tell me all about this. Like, first of all, I want to know about your background, like how you got into, fintech. So tell me a little bit about this because I know you've been in fintech, machine learning, product engineering, and venture capital. So you have this vast background of, experience and education. So let's talk about that and what led to creating this fintech platform.
Sure, Catherine. So Catherine, actually, I always talk about this, that if you would have asked me 10 years ago, what is one thing I wouldn't do? I would say to run a fintech company. I always had this great desire to be an artist. I've explored many different things from being a creative, and I'll give you a bit of background. But I thought of almost every single thing I wanted to be, from a scientist to a fashion designer to a monk, and then a venture capitalist, running a wellness company, building my own fashion brand. But one thing I really kind of hated was Excel spreadsheet. So I thought always that there's one thing I would never do is run a fintech company. But
well, you and I have this in common.
And fast forward,
I have that in common with a lot of people.
Yeah. Right? And
yes.
It was just so unplanned. So I can't really take credit and say I always knew I was going to run this company. I just went through a series of different experiences in my career. Maybe just I could dive deep a little bit on the background, maybe, if that's useful. So I grew up in Bangladesh, grew up in a business family. My father was a stock member. So I kind of grew up going to Dhaka Stock Exchange. I would drop him when I was 7 years old. And it was more like a Wolf of Wall Street movie, because there would be thousands of people on the street screaming, doing paper shares. And I wouldn't see a single woman there. So I used to look at him and I was like, oh my God, maybe I will just be a hedge fund manager when I grow older.
And then I love that you were thinking that at like 7 years old.
And then in my teenage years, I was looking at Versace and Armani and all that. I'm like, no, I'm just going to be a fashion designer. I'm going to go to London, study fashion, and that's that. And in between, I had different ideas, but I always liked robotics and I loved engineering. But I didn't go to engineering school because I thought it would be really boring to be an engineer. So I was like, that's not for me. So I went to fashion. Fast forward, I actually did my degree in finance. And my very first startup was an online fashion platform. That is right after university. And that's how I got into technology, because it was a fashion tech platform. And that started my obsession with technology. And I was very interested to build. And long story short, like almost 10 years, built a bunch of different products, worked with various different startups. And then I started doing some small angel investment, worked with a family office in between, alongside 2 VC firms. And then back in 2020.
Wait a minute, you worked for a family office, and where was that? Was that in the US or India?
They were in Saudi Arabia. They were based in Saudi Arabia.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, so that was quite a few years ago. And
what did you take from that experience? Like, what were they investing in? What did you learn from that?
That investment was a very slow, manual subjective biased decision process. And if you are not the actual decision maker, you're just going to run around and not able to make any decision. So what I realized being a founder was, okay, there are different sets of challenges while I was running tech companies and building tech products that I started seeing how important finance was. And again, founders were building products, but then the financial model, the underlying metrics were off. But then when I went to the other side, then I saw the other sets of challenges as an investor. For me as an angel investor, different sets of challenge of access to deals, doing due diligence manually, working with bigger investors and how they make decision and how biased that decision was. And this was, I'm based on.
I'm so glad that you brought this up, because when you said you worked for the family offices and you saw who the decision makers were, it brings me back to you and I were just talking about my TED Talk. And my TED Talk is about how people tend to invest in people they identify with, right? The research shows that. So if it's all men sitting at the table deciding who gets the money, that's who's getting the money. And so it is so important that women become the decision makers of who gets the funding. And the way we do that, of course, is becoming the investors, right? So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's a really important point, especially for you as a founder raising money, right?
Absolutely, Catherine. And also, Catherine, there are cultural differences. I grew up in Asia, then I moved to London, and London was home for the longest time. Actually, until this year, London was home. So Europe, the culture is quite different than, let's say, the culture in Saudi Arabia and Middle East. And US is actually, believe it or not, Catherine, so ahead of rest of the world. So if you think being in US, there are challenges, you can only imagine there are 10x, or sometimes I would say 50x challenges to be in certain, because the mindset of unicorn backing companies going 0 to 1 is probably, they don't have that many, but now it's catching up. It's much better. I'm talking about like 7 years ago, 10 years, 8, 9 years back, 5 years ago. But now
I do agree with you. You know, when we took our film, Show Her the Money, around the world on a worldwide tour last year, I did find that in the other countries we went to, that they did feel like the US was way ahead, and yet we are still so behind. And so that it's really fascinating to what you're saying. It's even worse in other countries. You're right. If you can even imagine, right?
Yes. Yes, Catherine. So I guess there were different sets of challenges, and I felt at that time that, okay, there is a huge knowledge gap, information asymmetry. Even there are female investors in certain part of the world, actually affluent women, where they had access to capital, but they're not aware of investing in startups. And even if they want to, they're not VC funds with a bunch of analysts who's helping gonna go and do due diligence. So I saw there a big gap in the market, that if we actually want to bring more investors in the space, how do we develop a decision infrastructure that will allow them to make much more data-driven decision much faster? So if I'm sitting in Saudi Arabia or in Dubai and I want to back a female investor based in New York, how do I do that?
I love what you're doing. Let me just say, the whole premise of our film and taking it around the world is to educate women in an engaging storytelling way. What is venture capital? Why should they be investing in it? You know, we've got this huge transfer of wealth. Like you said, there's wealthy women all over the world that could be putting their money into women entrepreneurs, but like you said, they probably don't know how. And I am super excited about your innovation called Ask RIA, which is this financial platform to help them do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us all about that.
So Catherine, Askria, I used to call it initially a digital co-founder, AI-powered this. I stopped all that AI-powered since this year, or since 2024, because everything is AI-powered now.
Yeah.
So I call it a belief infrastructure, or a decision infrastructure, or an infrastructure as a service that would allow investors and founders make better decisions. So what we are building is for the founders. We call it a digital co-pilot. A founder, different stages, can come, understand, build their financial model, understand if they should raise capital, build their pitch deck, build their data room, all of that automatically. Or if they have all of that, they can upload, and our technology scans those data, scores it, and actually give them more feedback. But more importantly, on the financial side, it will run simulation. Should you raise $1 million, $500,000, 10 million? Under all of those dilution, multiple scenario, maybe you shouldn't raise venture, maybe you should raise alternative capital. So we have partnered with 45 alternative lenders. And the technology I started developing a couple of years ago was really, how do we use machine learning to detect, based on your business logic and the sector and the stage, whether it can detect the type of financing you should go for, whether you should raise venture at all. Maybe you don't want to be a unicorn founder. So do you want to keep chasing the type of investor? And this is just like so much time is wasted because you don't understand capital structure. You end up diluting your business with 3 or 4 or 5th round. By the time you've gone to Series B, you've got 2% of your business. And that is not exclusive to female.
So let me stop you there because I know people are going to have questions. So you're connected to 45 lenders. Are those institutions? Are they individual angels? Like when you say lenders, is it lending capital for equity? Is it lending debt capital? What are you connecting them to be exact?
So Catherine, right now we have 2 pots. So we have a couple of VCs as partners. When I say 45 alternative lender, they are revenue-based financing, revolving credit, working capital, no private angels here. These are just institution, like I think some of them are already added on our website, Clearco, Pi, there are quite a few. Actually, it used to be Silicon Valley, a bank at that before. So there are different types of lender who works alongside with VCs, or sometimes just provide capital to bootstrap founders. There are a lot of different capital that came to the market in the last 5 years, which was data-driven. Like Stripe provides Stripe capital, right? So based on your MRR and ARR, perhaps Stripe capital can give you certain percentage of capital instead of you chasing a VC because you need 6 months buffer, right?
Quick question. Do some of these lenders loan to companies that are like real startups that don't even have profits yet?
No. So we would integrate with companies accounting, banking, and using that, we would say, okay, you're eligible for maybe going to an accelerator. You could go to a venture capitalist.
Oh, so it still will connect them.
But it can't connect them to revenue-based financing because so it will understand your business logic. It will look at all your numbers. So imagine just a CFO on autopilot. I am a CFO. You would come to me and I would look at all your finance and say, hey, Catherine, we say kayak for financing, right? You look at different financing options based on your business logic and your accounting data, and you decide what should you do. And we run a couple of different scenarios, like what happens if you do this? What happens if you do that? And these are
I love that. Yeah. So it's like an automated CFO for you.
Yes.
Every startup needs that. That's amazing. And then once they become profitable, you can connect them to the lenders.
Yeah. So if they were doing very early stage, so we are now partnering with all types of VCs on the other side, Catherine. So our tool has the other side for investor research, automated due diligence, and reporting. So if you're a $1 billion fund or a $100 million fund, you could use Askria as your digital analyst. So we would extract all the data, run the simulation, and tell you based on your fund's logic whether you can invest in this company or you want to invest. So that's why we are more of an infrastructure provider that you invest in seed stage company, wellness, fintech, food tech, and we provide that infrastructure for you to kind of automate the task your analyst does manually. But because
you're helping both sides. So you're helping the company that needs to grow and get financing, and then you're helping the investor wherever they are in the world connect to possible investments that meet their thesis and their criteria.
Right, Catherine.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And it is not a marketplace because a lot of time people think it's like a matchmaking marketplace. It's not. Investors can independently upload and analyze all the companies they want to analyze. So if you're an angel investor and we're not a matchmaking platform. You are using the tool. You can have a research agent, a due diligence agent, which will analyze all the stuff for you because you don't have a team of analysts and will help you make better decisions.
So in other words, you come across a company that you think you want to invest in, and you can ask RIA to do the due diligence for you. I love that. I think that is amazing.
Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah.
Yes, because I realize, Catherine, this is an interconnected problem. A founder's problem is an investor problem is a founder's problem, and we are all interconnected in the same ecosystem. It's not, when I solve the problem for the founder, there are different sets of challenges for the investor. If it's a VC fund, they need to report back to their LPs, and they need to show whether they're fighting for impact or responsibility or return and IRR, and what are you after? And also, if you have certain ESG metrics, is there a way we could help you extract all the impact metrics much faster? There's a female led company, or there are certain other ESG metrics that's available at a much faster speed through data from the pitch deck, from your financial model. We extract all those data and score them and give you that insight.
So I know if they find it a company that they want to invest in, they could put it in and get the due diligence. Can they go in and say, hey, I'm looking for a company that has this, this, and this? Is this what you're saying? And then it could find that company for them?
That part, Catherine, I'm working on this as we speak.
That would be a great.
We need a lot of volume, Catherine. If I want to do that, that means we need to have vast amount of volume of companies. And we are a startup, which is completely engineering led, a bunch of engineers.
This is why people need to fund you, because this is a really great platform, and it could have all these other aspects to it with funding, right? But yeah, I think, funding a company like this is so important, because I think the number one thing that people have a problem with when they're angel investing is they might not have the ability or the capability of understanding how to do due diligence. So I think it's an amazing platform, and of course, great for startups to learn about, once they're profitable, how do they get additional funding, that you connect them to these lenders to take them to the next level, because that's one of the hardest things that founders have on their plate, right? Even once they're profitable, it's hard to find funding. So I love that Ask RIA solves that issue. It's amazing.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Just, Catherine, add to that, because I think investment is so important. But after that, how do you manage that capital? So we have an operating agent, which will tell you. So we look at three things for a company. Using machine learning, how can you raise money, save money, and make money? So we look, because we integrate with companies' banking accounting system over a period of time, the vision is, can we develop more autonomous businesses? How can founders don't need if they don't have a lot of capital, at least without that much capital, they can still build different businesses if they understand the underlying infrastructure of how to build a profitable company. So yeah.
Love that. What you're doing is amazing for not just female founders, but all founders. But, we're always championing female founders. So
yes.
I'd like to give them these resources like Ask RIA to, make aware that this is something they could be using. And then I imagine that, like any company, you're still also looking for investors to help build this out. So love what you're doing. Think it's genius. And I think it's going to make a big impact in the startup world for all genders, right?
Absolutely, Catherine. That's the vision, that we are all in this together, and it's at least the vision is developing better unbiased system. We still have our emotion and bias. We are not robots yet. We're getting there. But how do we build better infrastructure, less closed LLM models, develop better system and infrastructure that doesn't target you and that enables you to make better decision and and I developed this concept of unicorn, decacorn, but a turtle company, a jellyfish company, a Pegasus company. And we came up with data science names of, maybe I don't want to be $1 billion company. I want to just make a $5 billion and build a profitable business without any investor. do I have enough knowledge and infrastructure to run that business? So I feel that's quite important to, look into a much more inclusive, profitable, or a better inclusive system instead of just chasing vanity metrics in the industry.
And I love that. And anybody could take their company, go to Ask RIA and say, what should I be going for? Should I be going for venture capital? Should I be going for institutional funding or otherwise? And they will get an answer. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. So askria .com.
.ai.
.ai, of course. Hello. So
And the domain was bought in 2020, Catherine. So I had it in my dream.
I love that. Really forward to
RIA stands for founders, it stands for real-time intelligent assistant. And for investors, it's revolutionary investment approach. So it's basically you can ask anything to RIA, and RIA actually comes as your digital clone and do some work. I have some other exciting announcement, Catherine, but probably not yet. When I see you in the US, probably in the next 1 month or 2 months, I'll tell you. But there's some really exciting stuff we are working on the product side.
And I love finding out what RIA stands for our listeners. Now they're in the know. So they will go to askria.ai, whether they're a founder or a funder, and get some valuable guidance there. And how do people reach you? Adhrita, it's going to be on the screen, your name, how it's spelled, but some people just listen in. I'm going to spell it. It's Adhrita, and her last name is Nowrin. And you can find, I take it, they can find you on LinkedIn.
You can find me on LinkedIn. I have recently started writing on Substack, but it's actually just personal stuff, and I feel less judged because I just come up with content and just publish it there. But yeah, on LinkedIn.
I love that. Well, everybody connect on LinkedIn. Go to askria.ai, of course. Check that out. And you, of course, can find me on LinkedIn as well, Catherine Gray, Catherine with a C, Gray with an A, and visit our websites, which is the movie, Show Her the Money movie.com and sheangelinvestors.com. Both have a lot of free advice and workshops and resources to help you be successful as a founder or a funder. Adhrita, wonderful having you on. And
thank you for everything you do and the person you are. I'm a big fan, and thank you so much for doing everything you do for the industry. This is incredible. You are incredible. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Back at you. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Make it a great week.